Hello, scholars, and welcome to Mr. Chambers Teaches HMH Into Math for 5th grade. Today we are working on Module 2, Lesson 3. These are pages 43 through 46 in your Unit 1, Module 1 through 9 workbooks. In this video, we will go through the Module 2, Lesson 3, spark your learning, build understanding, and step it out questions, and a few select questions from Check for Understanding and on your own. Feel free to skip around in the video to help working on the particular problems you may need help on. Today, in Lesson 3, we will estimate with two-digit divisors. Our objective, or our I can statement, is I can estimate quotients of division problems using compatible numbers. Spark your learning. One of Florida's tallest buildings is 900 Biscayne Bay. It stands 650 feet tall. The building has 63 floors. If each floor is approximately the same height, about how tall is one floor of the 900 Biscayne Bay building? Now, first thing we need to note is that 900 is not one of the numbers that we will be dividing by. That just happens to be its address. The two numbers to focus on are 650 and 63 floors. To show our thinking, remember today we are estimating, which means we don't need the exact division here. So we are going to be dividing 650, and we're going to round up 63 to 65. That is a comparable number that we can use to help us figure this out. This goes back to an earlier lesson where we learned that a number times 10 puts a 0 behind it. So dividing 650 divided by 60, we know that each floor is approximately 10 feet tall. Other ways in which we could model this is if we really wanted to divide 63 by 650, which we do not need to do for this particular lesson. We know that 63 can go into 65 one time. Minus 63 leaves us with a 2 carried out our 0. 63 can't evenly go into 20, so we'll say 0 times and have a remainder of 20 feet. This estimates to about each floor is about approximately 10 feet tall. Build for understanding. The Icon Brickell South Tower in Miami is 586 feet tall and has about 60 floors. About how many feet high is each floor? An equation that we can use is that we can divide 586 divided by the 60 floors. Does this problem require us to find an exact quotient? No, because we have the keyword about. The word about means we do not need an exact quotient. All right. C. What is true about dividends that are compatible with a divisor of 60? Dividends that are compatible with a divisor of 60 are multiples of 60. If I write out my multiples here, I know that I have 60, 120, 180, 240, 300, 360, 420, 480, 540, 600, 660. What two multiples of 60 are closest to 586? We have 540 and 600 are the two closest multiples of 60 to 586. So what are two of our estimates? Well, I know that if 540 is close, 540 is the ninth multiple. So 9 and 600 is the 10th multiple. Somewhere between 9 and 10 feet for each floor. Now, if we figure out the actual quotient, 60 into 586, we can find that 60 can't go into 586, but it can go in 9 times for 540. This leaves me with 446, 9 with a remainder of 46. Okay, so if our estimates are 9 and 10, because they are the 9th and 10th multiples of 60, our estimates are close because it doesn't account for the remainder of 46. Our estimates are close because of the remainder. Which one is actually closer, 9 or 10? Well, we'll say 10 because 46 is closer to 60. And so we need a whole number to round up to. 10 is closer because of the remainder. About how many feet high is each floor? Each floor is about 10 feet tall. About representing that we are estimating or rounding to the nearest number. All right, step it out. Number 2. Kadeem needs to travel to Florida for his job. The cost of the trip for 28 days is $2,475. About how much will this trip cost Kadeem each day? Model the problem with an equation. Are we asked to find an estimate or an exact answer? Our key word for estimating is about, which means we do not need the actual number. So, to help us out, our equation will be 2,475 divided by 28. No. Are we asked to find an estimate or an exact answer? We can just say estimate. Sometimes you might have to change both the dividend and the divisor to make numbers that are compatible. To what number might we want to change 28? Two numbers come to mind. I can either round down to 25 or I can round up to 30. Based off this, what numbers might I change 2,475 to find my two different estimates? Well, I may want to change 2,475 to 2,500, or because I know that 30 can go into 2,400 evenly, I can use either of these numbers. Now, this isn't us exactly rounding to the nearest 100, but finding compatible numbers that we can use. How did we choose these numbers? By finding multiples of our compatible numbers. All right. Using what we know, let's find an estimate for quotients. Well, if I have 25 into 2,500, I know that this is 25 times 100 because I have two placeholder zeros here, two placeholder zeros there. if I do 30 into 2400, take off my placeholder zeros here, 3 can go into 24 8 times, 80 times. So our two estimates are that it's somewhere between 100 and 80. About how much will the trip cost Kadeem each day? The trip will cost about $80 to $100 a day. Remember, we only had to estimate, as the keyword about tells us we don't need the actual quotient. On to check for understanding. Question number 1. We're going to do this on the next page. Every year, individuals race to the top of the U.S. Bank Tower in Los Angeles. The tower has 1,679 steps. A racer reaches the top in 16 minutes. About how many steps did the racer run in 1 minute? Our keyword about means that we're going to estimate, which here I see that I have 16 minutes and that I can round or use a comparable number of 1,600. If I use a comparable number of 1,600, I find that there are approximately 100 steps for each minute. I did not need to find my actual quotient for this problem, as the keyword about said I needed to estimate. And while typically we would round up to 1,700, I'm using comparable numbers, numbers that are multiples or look better when we are just estimating a quick idea of what number we could be getting close to when we actually divide this out. On to our on your own, we will be doing problems 3, 5, and 7 together, located on page 46. For question number 3, Melinda needs to travel for work. A 21-day trip costs $3,750. She says that means her trip will cost her about $200 a day. Is her estimate reasonable? Using comparable numbers, instead of dividing out 3,751 divided by 21, looking for comparable numbers. 21 can easily be 20. 3,750, while it is not entirely close, would round up to 4,000. 20 can go into 4,000 relatively easily. If I remove my last placeholder 0, I find how many times can 2 go into 400, or what is half of 200, or 400, which gives me 200. So yes, her estimate is reasonable. Because using comparable numbers, we estimate about $200 per day. We did not need to find our actual quotient of dividing 3,750 divided by 21. We can use comparable numbers to check her estimate to see if it is reasonable. All right. For problem number 5, we have 591 divided by 70. To use comparable numbers, we can find two different estimates. Well, if I think about my multiples of 7, I know that I have 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56 and 63 and 70. My two closest numbers here are the 9th and 10th multiple. The 9th multiple gives me 560, and my 10th multiple 630. So, if I say it is times 9, that leaves us with a remainder of 31. Or if we do times 10, 70 times, or I should say 70 times 9, that is the 8th multiple up here. It's okay. Sometimes we make mistakes. The 8th and 9th multiple. The 9th multiple, 630 minus 591. Remember to regroup as I subtract. 12 minus 9 is 3. 39. So it could be 9 over by 39. So it's somewhere between 8 and 9. It's not quite 9, but 8 gives us a remainder. So either 8 or 9. Later on, we'll figure out how to divide these out fully, but remember for this lesson, we are only estimating and finding comparable numbers to find what our estimates are. Okay? Our last question for today's lesson, number 7. Division of a number by a 2-digit number results in an estimate of 40. Write a division equation that would result in such an estimate. So we estimate that blank divided by 40, or that blank divided by blank equals 40. This is an open-ended question, so we can use a number of numbers here. We know that this number here has to be a 2-digit number. That means that it could be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all the way up till 99. I like 10 because that's the first number I said, but you can use any 2-digit number that you would like. If we have that 10 times 40, that we'd have about 400. So now I can write this out as a word problem. If we have 415, I just chose an arbitrary number there, scholars at our school, and each scholar has earned if we have 415 scholars at our school, and each scholar has earned 11 minutes of extra recess, how much does... I'm not a fan of that word problem, I apologize. Not that it's asking for a word problem, we just needed to come up with a number that would estimate to 415. To estimate to be 40. So if I say 415 divided by 11, that would still estimate to be about 40. My apologies if I confused any of those. But hopefully we understand that when we see the keyword about, we only need to estimate, and we use comparable numbers to find a good approximation. This now concludes our video on HMH Into Math for 5th grade. I'm Mr. Chambers, and I thank you for taking the time to watch this video to help you improve your math skills. And I look forward to speaking to you again in our next lesson, where we will be covering Module 2, Lesson 4.